Hello, everyone, and welcome to our monthly First Fridays in the Exchange Art Talk. I'm happy you're here tonight. But before we get started, I just have a few quick reminders for everyone. Of course, as we're going through our chat this evening, remember that you can ask questions anytime by commenting in the chat there, and we'll address those questions with our guest. I also wanted to remind you that First Fridays in the Exchange brings together artists, artist-run centers, galleries, businesses, and people like you to create a greater understanding and appreciation for the arts and the Exchange District area. So thanks for being here again. Please do check out our members on firstfridayswinnipeg.org. Remember, some venues are open tonight after the talk, and of course, they're open throughout the month of February. So check our website, firstfridayswinnipeg.org, and double check any public health orders or requirements to make appointments and private viewings at different galleries and artist-run centers. With Valentine's Day just a few weeks away, I'd recommend you check out maybe Art Beat Studio. Their new exhibition is called Loving Kindness by artist Clint Roscoe. And thank you to the Winnipeg Arts Council and the Manitoba Arts Council for their support of this season of Art Talks. So before we get started and meet our guest for this evening, I'll just go through a quick territory acknowledgement. The First Fridays organization was started to encourage people to come to the Exchange District in Winnipeg. We acknowledge that the Exchange is located within Treaty 1 territory, the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Nehina, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We recognize that those joining this talk online may also come from different traditional territories. We would like to work together toward greater understanding and acting on how to decolonize art, artistic practice, and public discourse. So without further ado, I guess I should start by introducing myself. I'm your moderator for this evening, Sarah Hodges-Kolisnyk. Thanks again for joining me. And our guest this evening is Dr. Suzanne M Steele, an award-winning poet, installation artist, Canadian war artist, librettist, and scholar. She is Métis, with roots that extend back to the first families with French and Anishinaabe backgrounds, and the Gaudry and Fayant families. Dr. Steele and composer Neil Weisensel recently received a SSHRC Award to establish a database of aesthetic translations of Indigenous languages in connection to their groundbreaking musical production of Keur, Riel's Heart of the North. So we'll learn all about those things in a few moments, but first, Dr. Steele has shared a wonderful video with us, so we're going to start with that video. Okay, welcome back and welcome to Suzanne Steele for joining us tonight. Thank you for being here, Dr. Steele. So I think as we can see in the video, we get a real sense that people and collaboration seem to be an important part of your work and important to you. So maybe you can just start us off by telling us a little bit more about yourself and your family.
Sure. First of all, I want to thank you so much for hosting me tonight. I'm very excited. I love the district, where you guys are located. When I'm in Winnipeg, I stay down in that area, and as you saw some of the photographs of the river, the great Red River in the winter, and so I just wanted to say thank you. It's really exciting for me to be part of your arts your art scenario. To start off, what we always do in anything to do with our project, we always start off with a little protocol and tell a little bit about who we are, and then we ask, the people we're visiting with, a little bit about themselves. And so my name is Suzanne Steele, and I am from the Gaudry and Fayant families, Red River family, the Gaudrys, and the Fayants are. I'm not 100% sure that's a family that I'm just getting to know now, but I know that my great grandmother was born south of the Medicine Line, which is the what we call the border. And so I grew up not knowing very much about my background, because my grandmother, who was raised in the residential school, a convent, which was a de facto residential school, she didn't ever speak of her past. And, it was a difficult past. I've now learned, the Gaudrys went into diaspora and they just split apart, this big family that had social capital and wealth, real capital, just blew apart. And so some went west, and et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, my grandmother didn't really speak of her wonderful culture, fascinating culture. She died when I was very young, but little things, I could tell little things were kind of turning me towards that family and to understand it a little bit better. And yes, it was actually at a party at my editor's house where I met someone who put me in touch with a Métis genealogist, and I got 14, 16 generations back, and I could see we were very solidly part of the Red River Métis peoples. So that's a little bit about my family on my father's side, Scots that came to PEI in the 1790s. And so that's it. That's a little bit about my background.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing my background. My family's both sides were settlers from Britain. My mother's side was from Ukraine. They all came here early 1900s. So that kind of era when the exchange district itself was, of course, kind of blossoming. But over the last couple of years, I've been learning more about my family backgrounds and just really interesting connections between the land and how they lived on the steppes in Ukraine. And it has a lot of similarities to where I live outside of the city now. So as with everything, I'm really enjoying, like you, learning more about my roots. So maybe we could go to image number 2 on the slideshow, please, Erin. Oh, maybe one more, sorry. Oh, or did you want to speak to this one?
I just want to just say something. Yeah, I actually don't care for the word settler. I prefer newcomer. And again, I refer quite often to interviews that Maria Campbell has given or that I've read or whatever. And I believe, and I can't speak for her obviously, but that she doesn't favor that either. In my case, it's I honor both sides of my ancestral blanket. And I think a newcomer, because a lot of people didn't come to settle per se, they came to escape, a hardship or religious persecution or whatever, or war or famine or whatever. So that's just a little thing that I would like to add,
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And I know, you talk about a blanket a lot. Is there extra meaning in that, or is there symbolism in that you like to unpack for us? Or
I don't know, but I have my nice Hudson's Bay blanket here.
yeah.
No, I think, I mean, blankets keep us warm, and a good blanket like this one. This is like one of the 5-point blankets are passed down generation to generation, and they were, and obviously my family was involved with the Hudson's Bay Company, and we're traders and navigators, and one of my great grandfathers was a translator for Sitting Bull when Sitting Bull went down to the States. So they were entrepreneurs, and blankets are to this day treasures. These kinds of blankets are treasures. So yeah. I didn't realize I talk about blankets so much. That's good.
Well, speaking of family and ancestors, because I know in getting to know you, fortunately, over the last little bit, that journey of family, traveling with family, walking in the footsteps of ancestors has been an important part of your work. So can you tell us maybe about some of the journeys and the research and the adventures that you've had with your family?
Certainly. There are two, and I actually don't know if I spoke to you of one of them. In 2015, Jeff and I took our 17-foot sailboat, Miss Moose, from the Saskatchewan Glacier all the way to Lake Winnipeg on the North Saskatchewan. And we started out on foot on the glacier, then to rubber raft, and then to our boat at Lake Abraham. And it's a 2,200 kilometer journey. I wanted to see the old river highways. And so that was fascinating. So that's one thing that's really influenced my thoughts on this particular work, but also, future work as well. And then the other is in 2017, we went, Jeff and my daughter and I, and we picked up her partner, who is a young British man, who is also a naturalist, and he was our photographer. And we did 10,000 kilometers through the homeland. With our truck and our bowler, good old Winnipeg bowler. And we stayed off grid as much as possible, because I really felt I needed to hear needed to hear the land as it was, in the time period that I'm writing about, which is 1870s, 1885. But I also needed to experience it, and I wanted to hear what story I needed to tell. And so we traveled together, the four of us, and it was quite a profound journey. Actually, it was amazing. The naturalist, Matthew, his name is Matthew Lloyd, he was fantastic to have along on the trip, because he's and he won't mind me saying this, he's a bird nerd, and so he knew all, he bought a bird book, and he could identify everything, and the flora and the fauna, and you can see his photographs on our website. Mm-hmm. And my daughter, she's the traditional fiddler you saw in that last clip, so she and Jeff could play music, and that's flowers for hummingbirds, any Métis or people just love the fiddle. And so so that was our experience, and very interesting, very, very interesting.
So Erin, if we could go maybe to the next slide, the one that has kind of ruins in it, that one, yeah. So can you talk about a little bit, you traveled these river highways, these river systems. What were some of the things you were researching? What were you looking for? You were listening to stories, and talk about the importance of place.
Okay, work. Now these are from the second trip that I described. Yes, when we went overland. And okay. So they, we had a little bowler trailer and a truck, and, but we tried to stay off grid as much as possible, even staying in fisheries campgrounds, etc. So we didn't have electricity or anything like that, or showers or whatever, So what I just literally wanted to hear something. And so I went, we retraced basically the area in which Riel and our people were, had lived and traded, etc. So we were at Fort oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the Belknap, I think, where Riel actually was a trader outside there, and this whole area. And so the photograph, I believe, is of St. Peter's Monastery, and that's where he taught for a couple of years. And I think really it's the time, and I write about it this in the opera, where he had the most, in quotes, normal life. You know, he had a wife and children, those beautiful children you saw pictures of in that little montage. And I think this is the closest he had to a normal life in his entire life. You know, so being there was tremendous. You know, to walk amongst the ruins, it's, you know, that was tremendous, as was camping on the Missouri River at Pelican Point. So, and I think you're going to show us a picture of that.
Yeah, if you could go to the next slide, Erin. There we
Okay.
go. Yeah, that's Pelican Point.
Yeah, the Missouri River, Pelican Point. And so that was kind of where we stayed for, I don't remember how long, and then we did little day trips out of that. And, you know, so we went to the Buffalo Jump National Park, which is, you know, I'll tell you something fascinating about this whole project. I'm going to just grab a book here. Along the way, it's not only the landscape, but it's people I met that really informed the work. And along the way, we went to Buffalo Jump National Park because I wanted to show my troupe, you know, what a traditional buffalo jump looked like. And there was a powwow, a veterans powwow going on at the time, and there were Métis people there. Now this is interesting because in Montana, a lot of the Métis people don't know they're Métis or recognize the Métis, you know, and so it was really fortuitous. And someone at this powwow said, you must go meet Dr. Nicholas Vrooman. He's here. And that's him over there. Anyway, long story short, he died a few years ago. He was one of the Métis people's greatest allies in modern times, you know, for negotiating all kinds of settlements, et cetera. And so I bought his book, which he signed, and I told him about the project, and he said, Suzanne, this is your story now to tell. You're on the right track. And that happened to me again and again and again in this journey. It was tremendous. You know, I can remember swimming, and there was a family, and, you know, a local family, and I could tell that they were Métis. I could tell. So I started to talk to them, and they didn't realize that they were Métis, but we started to talk. Well, my grandfather was a fiddler, and blah blah blah. You know, it was very interesting, very, very interesting. So little things kept happening.
And then, so how do these stories, what's your role in this? How do these stories then kind of get translated into your work?
What's my role?
Yeah.
My role. Oh, let me tell you, when Neil Weisensel came to me, well, our agent actually put us together. We had never met. He said, oh, maybe you guys want to work together. And we very naively thought, what a great idea. Let's write a new opera on Louis Riel, right? Oh, we were so naive. Louis Riel, such a complex, fascinating, amazing human being, polarizing still to this day. I could write 100, maybe 1,000 operas on any aspect of his life. And I went, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because no matter what I do, someone's going to be mad at me because I'm not going to have it historically correct or whatever. Now, remember, I'm an artist, and that's something I have to continually remind people. I'm an artist. I'm not a historian. I'm not an activist. I'm not, you know, I'm here just to present something. Yeah, so we were very naive. But it wasn't until I looked at a diary in North Dakota, a diary I had heard of. Dr. Heather Devine had located it in 2002. It's a diary, we don't know who it's written by, from the 1870s, 80s, whatever. And in it is a story of someone named Baptiste Robideau. And he's a poet, and he's clearly on the run from something, and he speaks several languages, and he's well educated, et cetera, et cetera. Well, some people think it's Riel. And in fact, Nicholas Vrooman, you know, I said to him, well, do you think that's Riel? He says, yes. He says, I've compared the names in the records and the names, and he thinks it is. But it doesn't matter, because what it did give me was those missing years of Riel as a creative place to start. And at the center of this amazing diary, 700 pages, my daughter and I were downloading like crazy because we only had a couple of hours in the North Dakota archives. There was a love triangle. There was a love affair with this beautiful, in quotes, half-breed, because that's what we were called in those days, and some people still do, named Josette. And she was beautiful. And the person who wrote the diary was clearly in love with her and clearly jealous of this Baptiste Robideau, aka Riel. And I went, bingo, there's my opera.
Yes.
It was one of those, moments where you get a chill, you get an absolute chill. You go, okay, because it was so operatic, We've got the man, running away, the fugitive, but the educated. You've got this wealthy Englishman who's jealous. You've got this beautiful, beautiful young woman named Josette. So that's how I mean when I say I have to listen to what the story is going to be.
Yeah, you have to listen to their voices.
It's not about me. It's not about me. And it was the same with my war work. Certainly I use the first person, but it's not about me. It's about what I can hear. Yeah.
So I do want to follow up. Oh, and I should remind folks who are joining us that if you have any questions, do type them into the chat and I can forward those on to Suzanne. But I did want to ask, you say your opera. So what can people expect when they see Keur, Riel's Heart of the North, when it does the full piece will premiere at the WSO in the 2022-2023 season? What can they expect? Who will be in the audience? What will they see?
Well, first of all, the 2022, we hope, because it's our third cancellation, I believe, is going to be more like a concert style. It's not going to be fully staged at this point. But having said that, we are going to have Yvon Chartrand and Benny Dancy, an amazing Métis dance troupe. Yvon Chartrand's father, by the way, is one of the translators. There's going to be a northern chorus made out of community members across the north who've been meeting virtually. There's going to be, an orchestra and 5 or 6 tremendous world-class voices. You're going to hear 5 languages. 3 languages are Indigenous, Anishinaabe Mowin, also known as Soto, or Ojibwe, and a couple of Métis. And so about 70% of this is going to be in Indigenous language. So what I'm trying to do is flip people's expectations upside down and open their ears to these most beautiful languages that have been around for so long. Thousands of years in one case and hundreds of years in the other. Yeah, so I think it's and as far as the the content, that it's going to be entertaining. There are some kind of, if you want to call them, cliches of opera, and and you've got the main character, one of the main characters, Josette. She's a sharpshooter, and that's quite based on the Josette in the diary isn't a sharpshooter, but our women are and have been amazing shooters, hunters, and a lot of people after the buffalo went and worked in the proto Wild West shows. So I've got her and Marie Serpent. Serpent is a family name, by the way, Anishinaabe connection. She's a traditional medicine knowledge keeper, and she's based in part on someone very dear to me, Rose Richardson, who is a wonderful Métis elder and knowledge keeper and medicine knowledge keeper. You're going to find all kinds of things. You're going to find a boxing match. You're going to have a buffalo brigade. You're going to have women. The women are central to this. The women are the heart of Keur, because I wanted to bring in the women and our role, sewing and mending the violence of men, but also sewing our culture together and keeping our culture together. So you're going to find that there's a sewing. When the boxing match happens, there's a sewing match where everyone brings out their beautiful clothes, and so that's the natural competitive spirit of the Métis people. That's how we keep our chops up, right? We have boxing matches, we have horse races, we have sewing matches, so to speak. We're entrepreneurs. So you're going to see a lot. Oh, excuse me. Also, there's going to be some visuals as well. Some wonderful visuals by T. Aaron Gruber is going to be doing those. Yeah. Traditional fiddling, awesome. Isaac Kusteruk. Sorry, Isaac. I'm sure I'm going to forget everybody. He's a co-composer, and Alex is a former North America Grand Champion fiddler, but also an awesome fiddler. His mother is Patty Kusteruk, who you in Winnipeg will know. I mean, a fabulous fiddler. And my daughter's taken some classes with her. Yeah, you're going to love it. You're going to love it.
It sounds amazing. There's so much you just shared, and no spoilers or anything. So
no
actually,
spoilers.
This is a great segue. Why don't we listen to a clip from the song Mending the Violence of Men?
Would you like me to set it up, or do you want me to talk about it after?
Let's listen. I always like to listen and have no context and form our own opinions. Yeah. So we'll listen and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Good attitude.
Okay, welcome back. Wonderful. So we'll post all the links to that content after and make sure we credit all the singers and things like that. But Suzanne, could you tell us a little bit about what we just listened to?
Okay, so that comes after the boxing match, and the men have just hammered each other. The two main boxers have hammered each other, and to the extent where they've done really serious damage. So the women's chorus calls, fetch Marie Serpent, go get Marie Serpent. And Marie Serpent comes and she brings her, her medicines, and she sits down and begins to sew the skin of the men back together. I mean, they've really harmed each other, And so she's singing in Anishinaabe Moen, and I'm actually going to give you a quick little translation. I've got to look here on my screen. So what I wrote was in English: "What strange mending is this of the violence of men?" And it's very interesting because this is where the translation project proved so interesting. The Anishinaabe Moen speakers, the Beach du Charmes, wonderful people, Deborah and Donna, great collaborators. They said, well, that was like so hard, not hard for us, but that was really a challenge. And they ended up translating it. I repair his wound just like I sew a dress. I find it strange. So from my line, what strange mending is this of the violence of men, to Anishinaabe Moen, the image of sewing a dress, like skin, like a dress. And I just think that is fantastic. And so the singer is also saying she brings the medicines from the creators, and she smudges and she says, oh, sacred smoke, make the world and us whole again. This is the translation. And then she says, we women, this is what we do. Sew and smudge, we make the ugly beautiful. Take scraps of life and create a good life. I find it strange. I sew his skin like I repair a dress, which is, I love that transition that they took, from my words. And I mean, because, and that's the poetry that I write, or the libretto, is very difficult, it's very complex and dense. So I love the fact that our collaborators would be thinking and and they actually told me, working with this text stretched and pushed at their language, and they would go and take this to the elders in their community. And so in a way, there is some vitalization. I'm not saying revitalization, I said vitalization in this collaboration that we're doing together. And to me, that this is the goal that we as artists have at our fingertips.
Yeah, I think it's so lovely that you talk about the project being an aesthetic translation, that we're really, celebrating the beautiful qualities of language in each language. And they're languages that have been spoken in this place at different times for thousands of years, right? And they're all working together. And I love that aspect of it. And I should point out too, when we say translation project, what we're talking about is the Keur, Riel's Heart of the North translation database that is now housed at CMU. And I can share a link to that as well for those who are interested.
Can I just say something to follow up on that? So for me, it's very exciting because obviously I never met my ancestor, Serpent. Actually, her name was Josephette Serpent. And so it's just like, to me, like, she would have spoken some of this, and that's really exciting. Just on my father's side, by the way, Gaelic, they spoke Gaelic right up till like the late 1800s, So to hear these languages and then to hear the Métis, and especially after my grandmother told us we always spoke French, but I think they were taught that their French was not a good French. So this really vitalizes the Métis language as well. So it's a great experience.
I'm going to just remind folks, if you did want to ask a question, to access the chat, you just click on the button below the video. There should be a button there that says join the chat. So if you have any questions, if we're not clear about anything, or you want to follow up on anything, please do that. If we can go to the slide, we have a slide of some beadwork on a jacket. If we could bring that image up. There we go. Yeah. So you had shared this image with me when we were talking in preparation for the talk today. But what I really want to think about, we've talked about sewing and mending, and I know one of the things you and I have talked about is that women's art is art. And I know that's kind of a hashtag that you've started and have going around. So can you speak to that a little bit? And then maybe you can also reference what this image is for us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It is something, I've traveled the world, I've studied overseas, and I go into museums and I see this beautiful beadwork very frequently. Most often incorrectly labeled, and never is the artist acknowledged, and a lot of ours was a very portable culture. And when you have portable cultures anywhere in the world, you have fantastic, beautiful art that's often wearable. Or, so if you look at the dogs, and they wear these tapis, these blankets, the Métis dogs, they have these gorgeous, unbelievable blankets, and they have ribbons in their, in their harnesses, and silver bells and everything. I mean, they must have been a sight to see, and it tells you how much the dogs were valued, that the women would make such beautiful art for the dogs, but also how proud these women were. If you are on the move a lot, you bring your house with you, you bring your art with you. And the other thing too is that you would make your men and your children look beautiful as well. You know, so for example, this jacket, I believe that's Riel's jacket. Now, you know, I think that's in the National Museum of Civilization. I think, don't quote me on that. But yeah, so that whole idea of sewing, mending, beading, adapting, is, and I do believe women's art is art. Often we've been sort of put into the little tidy little category known as craft, until interestingly men take it up. And then all of a sudden I've noticed, you know, I can remember there was a knitter in the 1980s, you know, all of a sudden his work was art, right? Never mind the hundreds of whatever, you know. So to me, that having women sewing as, and also they were a central part of the economic system of North America, you know, and were for a long time. So I just feel it's time that we recognize the artists for who they are, and if at all possible, recover some of that. By the way, I don't know if your people can see me if I'm on screen, but I'm wearing my beaded jean jacket, you know, very contemporary, and I'm teaching myself to bead, and it's really fun. It's really relaxing, and you know, it's just an important thing. It's very tactile. And in the opera, I open the whole thing with a type of creation story in a beginning. And it's a chase of Le Grand Buffalo, who is our universe. And, you know, he's killed by Le Grand Chasseuse, the great hunter. She's a woman. She's the best sharpshooter our nation has ever seen. And she skins and tans, etc., the hide. And then she sews together the Métis peoples. And she sews together their beautiful clothes. And as she's sewing and beading their beautiful clothes, beads drop onto her lap, and they become our Venus, and they become our Saturn, and you know, and they become our universe. So you'll see these themes throughout, and hopefully you're going to actually see that above the proscenium during this performance, some of the beads falling and becoming our Venus. So
that sounds lovely.
I can talk forever, as you can see.
Well, it's okay. I'm enjoying listening. But we do have a few questions. So one comment from Carlin, she said, "I'm so thankful that you addressed the word settler. With language so important, this word has become code for racist, white supremacist, land thief, and worse." So thank you for sharing that thought. Did you have anything you wanted to say to that? Or?
Yeah, you know, we all struggle with language. Language is always changing, and we're always learning, and hopefully we're growing, but I think it's when we become entrenched. And, you know, I never, ever actually adopted the word settler, ever. You know, by the way, my PhD is only 4 years old, so I know all about post-colonial theory, et cetera, right? And post-colonial theory. And I hear a lot of post-colonial theory thrown around or used, and maybe not very nuanced, you know? So, and I think if we recognize, so for example, the newcomers came onto the land that people like you know, the Gaudry Fayants lost, understand that while our social and economic capital went down, the newcomers went up. And if you understand that, it's not to make people feel guilty, but to understand, you know, that is advantage. It's advantage. So I don't use the word privilege either. Right? It's an advantage, you know. And so anyway, I'm interested. And hearing Maria Campbell make a statement about settler was really interesting to me. You know, I've only met her once, and I'd love to spend time with her, but you know, and maybe she has a different point of view now. I don't know, because we all change, right? Points of view. Yeah. So anyway, there you go.
Thank you. And then the question we had from Monique, she says, or they say, "I loved the slideshow at the beginning because it showed us the threads that came together to create the opera." Absolutely. So they say, I'm curious about how or if you interweave the past, present, and future together in the opera. So a
Oh my
fabulous
God.
question. Yeah.
Oh my God. I tell you something. I have a ghost chorus or an ancestors chorus. So I have the mythic present. I have the past, the deep past. I have the 21st century because there's a meta narrative with a young woman named Josephine Marie. Interestingly, my daughter's name is Ella Josephine Marie. That's the wonderful thing about being a writer. You can name anyone anything, right? And she is one of the narrators. So she kind of frames this whole opera. And then we have the future. And so, but I think, again, that's not self-consciously done on my part, but what I do believe it is it shows perhaps a different way of experiencing our lives, and that is there with us at all times. Right now, by the way, my grandmother, Josephine Marie, I don't know if you can see that. There Absolutely. She is, right? Beautiful, beautiful. There she is. And she's in my heart always. And my mother, and, here's my daughter, like they're with me. And I hope granddaughters and great granddaughters, I hope, basically I've tried to, and it wasn't self-conscious, but to cover 7 or 8 generations. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks, Monique.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question. Is that just you? Where does this less linear approach to storytelling and to time kind of come from? What's informed that? Or is it just the way you work and the research you've done and the experiences you've had that connect you through, ancestors and walking those historic footsteps? You say you're not a historian, but
well, what I mean in this context of I'm not a Riel historian, because my training as a PhD is in history, war narrative, and very technical, and also literature. So I'm very, very aware of form, and so I'm sure if I sat down, you would see the form coming. There was a picture in the slideshow of a wall chart. And it was from Banff, where I went to the Leighton colonies. And what I did is I took a huge piece of newspaper, news roll, that paper, and I charted out the opera. And then I moved things, and I went, okay, how can I tie it together? So I'm actually very visual. I'm not only visual in my words, but I'm actually in the creating process. I'm very visual, so photographs, whatever, yeah. So I don't know if does that help you? So and so I thought, I started to write, and if I'm doing the job properly, Suzanne isn't in the room. And so I had like this ghost chorus. So I had this creation story come to me. And by the way, I don't take anyone's stories. I don't repeat anyone's stories, no community stories or anything. Everything in this is going to be mine or based on primary research or experience. Primary research in the archives. There was a picture of me, I think, coming up, with the Louis Riel diaries, I think.
Yeah, we should actually put that up right now. That's a perfect segue. Good job.
I've talked about this a few times.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
So tell us what's going on in this image.
Yes. Well, that was towards the end of the 10,000 kilometers with my quartet and through the homeland. And I stopped at the the archives in St. Boniface. And forgive me, people out there, we'll get you the proper name of it. And I had a chance to see what I'd been working from. I'd been working from, the Les Écrits Complètes de Louis Riel, the collected writings of Louis Riel, edited by Flanagan. And I got a chance to actually see Riel's letters and journals. And as a scholar, there's nothing like seeing the real thing, because you see the paper, the quality of the paper, you see the type of ink, you see the slope of the handwriting. And as that one of the pictures that I put in the montage, at the very end, he said, it's the page that says they are fighting for their lives. And so that also informed me, So you'll see in the opera, there's a refugee chorus of children that are sick, which I wrote during the time of the Syrian refugee crisis.
I was just going to say, yeah.
So, plus ça change. And environmental degradation, with the fires in Montana and everything. Plus ça change. Yeah. Excuse me, but this pandemic experience, we've been there. We've been there. Our peoples have been there. We've been told to stay home. We've been forced to stay home or whatever. It was different. But what I'm saying, we've overcome disease and poverty and we've been told we can't practice our cultural practices like weddings and funerals, et cetera, et cetera. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that while I'm writing a historical piece, that there are some very contemporary. So for example, I just revisited the refugee chorus during the pandemic. I rewrote a little bit of it because it had so much resonance. Yeah.
So this, the opera was set to debut for the 150th anniversary of Manitoba. But of course, COVID happened and postponed things. So you say, you've been through this, your people have been through this. What's the overall message? What's the feeling? What should we take away from your work in the opera? Like, I feel like right now things are feeling tough. But you have so much experience and so much thought to draw from.
Well, first of all, many of our peoples around the world have been through something like this, But I'm just saying, it echoes for the Métis peoples and the Indigenous peoples. What do I take away? We never stop making something beautiful. We never stop. We can't. We have to. And we have to continue to sew together our family, even if our family is so far away with Zoom. I organized the Zoom New Year's Eve get together, that's a type of sewing together as a family, and so despair, we can't afford despair. And, you look at Riel, like, my God, he fought for, the peoples, not just the Métis people. He fought for many other people as well. He put what he had been given to the best of his ability. He put it to work. And I think as artists, this is so important for us never to lose sight of that. And I know we get depressed. Come on, I've just had 3 gigs canceled, right? That's financial big hit. Our singers, world-class singers, they're seeing losses in the 6 digits, of gigs canceled. And everyone's tired and everyone's cranky and everyone's miserable. But the artists, we cannot give up hope because we really hold the light. We really do.
Well, and someone just commented as well that they said, you are truly an artist to appreciate the paper, the slope of the handwriting. And I think that just speaks to finding those things, finding those beautiful moments in so many ways. You haven't, focused on kind of capital A art. You draw from all these sources, women's art as art, all these different things, right? With no categories inform this project. And I think it'll be really exciting to see it on the stage.
Can I say something too?
Yeah.
I didn't want to write about Riel's death. I wanted to write about life. And I think that's what we really need to concentrate on now. And believe you me, there are many days when I am very down, because I have to stay home for some other reasons. I'm in the process of recovering from a major illness, and I'm good, I'm fine. But, I have to stay home. But can I read to you what Maria Campbell said in an interview in November 29th, 2020 with Carol Off? And that was when the new edition of Half Breed was published. She said, change is through the arts. Change is through storytelling. It's through singing songs. It's people visiting each other and talking. It's theater. It's all those things. And I really believe this. The other thing is, it took 400 years for us to get to where we are. It's not going to be 4 years to get out of this. We start slowly by visiting with each other like you and I are visiting today and telling story. You told me story about your family on the steps. That tells me a lot about you. And I really thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing your stories and your knowledge today. We do have about 5 minutes left. So if anyone has any other questions, please do type them in the just under the video screen. You'll see a join chat button. You can chat, type your questions there. Can
I tell you where the title comes from?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Please do.
Okay, so back in 1885, Riel was down in Montana, and he saw a crate of merchandise in a warehouse, and on the side of it, and I'm just doing a translation from the French here, on the side of it, it said, "The Heart of the North." And he went, "Oh my God," he said, "the heart of the North." He says, "Oh, and he says to Christ and Mary and Joseph and Saint Jean-Baptiste, give me the grace and the heart of the North to conquer. I want to conquer the heart of the North." So I thought, wow, that's beautiful. So this image of the heart is really important, and that the women are the heart, and that, our cultures at the heart of the continent are speaking again. And we're if I can do a tiny, tiny bit, and I can only do a tiny bit. I'm only one artist. Neil is doing a wonderful job of orchestrating and composing, as is Alex Kostruk, and our translators.
Actually,
that's the way we go.
We should put up an image of the translators so we can make sure
I'll name them.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's actually a photograph from Saint Laurent that Neil took. Our translators, and they're not in this picture necessarily, but they were in the other. Madame Vera de Montigny of Brandon, Manitoba, and she speaks heritage or Southern or Cree Michif, or traditional Michif. Doctors June Bruce, Lorraine Coutu, and Agathe Chartrand. Those are 3 women who got honorary doctorates for their work in their languages. Suzanne Zeke, Joyce Dumont, all of Saint Laurent, Manitoba. Mesdames Donna Beach and Deborah Beach Ducharme of Animaux-Zibing, Lake Manitoba First Nation, and they are Anishinaabe speakers. And Monsieur Jules Chartrand of Saint Laurent, French Michif, and the late Monsieur Francis Fontaine. And he was our French expert, and he was so great. And we lost him a few years ago, and such a tragedy. He was so important to this project. So yeah, so those are our translators. And without them, I can't do anything.
Thank you. Yes. So we have one question that came through. It says, how do you keep the passion when everything looks so bleak?
Oh, ask my daughter, my dog, and my spouse. Yeah, well, I'm passionate about my work, but let me tell you too, it's not been easy work. It has been challenging work. It really has challenged reconciliation at times. It's been very difficult work, but we work it through. And how do I do what? How do I not get bleak?
How do you keep the passion when everything looks
well, I
so
think bleak? I think personally, I think we're at least 2/3 at least of the way through. And don't panic. I mean, of the whole thing. Things always end, folks. These times will end, and we are working for the most part together to end it. Yeah. And how do I keep from seeing it so bleak? Some days I really do, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay. So that's the time then you turn to your paints or your learn to embroider. Find out your in quotes Indigenous family traditions. So, if you're, from the steppes, some traditional embroidery from your people or whatever, because it puts you in communication with your people of a time. And if not, learn something new. There's lots to learn. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You can check out some of those things on the First Friday's website.
Oh, I'm going to.
Yes, but there are some fabulous opportunities, feeding circles, all kinds of things in the city. So definitely check some of those out.
I wish I lived in Winnipeg.
Well, you can come visit.
I have many times. I wish I'd lived in Winnipeg, except in February. No, February is beautiful.
It's -40 here today.
Been there, done that. Up at Lake Manitoba, -40, doing research.
Fair enough. Well, I don't see any other questions, and it is 7:30. So do you have any final thoughts for us that you want to talk about, or anything I missed?
I think really, Maria Campbell's words about us visiting, and art is a form of visiting, you know, and storytelling being fundamental to, you know, our lives. And I think right now we can't necessarily visit each other in person, but I'm having a wonderful visit with you, you know, and a very memorable visit, and a visit that I wouldn't be able to have normally, right? You know, because we're not in the same city. So I think to not despair, and to look to your past, and if you can, and make a connection with your deep past if you can, and to realize that reconciliation, truth is hard, but we will make it. We will make it if we have the will, and we have to do it, or we can do it. No, we don't have to. I'm not going to prescribe, bit by bit, with little visitings like this. So anyway, thanks very much, everybody, for listening to me. I can go on and on, as you can see.
Thank you so much for being here. It has been just lovely to get to know you over these last couple of weeks. And please do, everyone out there, check for updates on the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra website as to when the Keur Riel's Horde of the North will premiere. It'll be sometime in the next season, when hopefully it's easier to get together in groups. Yeah.
And thank you, Winnipeg Symphony, and everyone as well.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So I do want to, again, just make sure I thank the sponsors for this evening, the Winnipeg Arts Council, the Manitoba Arts Council, and the CBC for their help with the streaming. And hopefully you'll tune in next month when J.A. Seuss will be back with a new art talk.
Great. And the Canada Council, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Suzanne M Steele.
Bye-bye.
Bye.